Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. Today we're going to be discussing the American battleships and how they need a bit of love. So, I think I mentioned this probably 2 months ago, especially about around the Montana, saying that she needed a bit of love since she is, the oldest tier 10 in the game. Her and Yamato, they were the first tier 10 battleships in the game, and she's gone through a couple of changes since the game was released. She and the Tier 9, Tier 8 American battleships got their citadels lowered. Then they also received a buff to their heel, which Montana just got not that long ago, that the Iowa and North Carolina had been having for some time. Missouri still doesn't have it for some weird reason, but yeah. And today's video, this is how I got the idea to do, well, this is how the thought came to my mind that, well, the American battleships really need some help. So, today's video was supposed to be kind of another meme video, like the German battleships video and the Graf Zeppelin video. And it was supposed to be about all of the American lines, so the entire USN tech tree. Not the whole tech tree, I mean, they're supposed to have American destroyers, American cruisers, American battleships, and American carriers. So I was recording in the Enterprise, the Kidd, the Salem, the Puerto Rico, the Alaska, the Iowa, the Missouri, the Massachusetts, and the Montana, Ohio, and Georgia. So a lot of ships. I was busy on Tuesday. The problem was, when it came time to record the American battleships, everything was recorded. I did fine and got some good highlights to put in the video. But when it came time to record the American battleships, I was really struggling to get any good footage in the Missouri, the Iowa, and the Montana. The Georgia, Massachusetts, and Ohio, however, I did just fine, and I got plenty of clips for them to be in the video. But I didn't want to leave out the other ships, the older ships, the Iowa, the Missouri, and the Montana. So I kept playing the Iowa, the Missouri, and the Montana, and I was just really struggling to do well. Now, I did decent in them, don't get me wrong, but I just couldn't get anything really worthy of going in a highlights clip. I think the best thing I got was in Missouri. I got a double citadel on a King George V and drained him of like 30,000 health, but it's like, it's a tier 7, that's not that impressive. And boy, if I thought just the Montana needed a little tweaking before, I was wrong. The Montana, Iowa, and Missouri all need a little bit of help. I don't think they've really touched the Missouri since she is the Missouri and is a removed premium ship, but she does need a little help too. So, the Iowa and the Montana and the Missouri, their biggest issue is they are squishy and they don't respond well to HE. And in the current meta of throw HE at everything, I mean, you've got battleships throwing HE. Battleships that have no business of throwing HE at you that are throwing HE at you nowadays. And, these ships are coated in 32 millimeters of armor, and they're eating HE pins left and right. There's an instance in the Iowa where I ate a salvo from the Thunderer. I was angled, and it hit the area beneath the number 2 turret, and he had HE loaded, and it still did like 8,000 damage. And that's with HE. God, Thunderer, you need to chill. Someone needs to check the Thunderer real quick. And the Thunderer needs a little bit of a nerf, but that's another video for another day. But anyway, that happened, and it wasn't just the Thunderer doing that, eating HE from any other battleships. The Americans were still eating very big pins, even when angled. And, of course, with AP, they were eating just as many pins, if not more. Well, actually, it was more pins than the HE. And Jesus Christ, it was rough. It was really rough, I'm not going to lie. I almost gave up a couple of points. Well, I did give up because obviously this video isn't the one that I had planned for today, but that video will be coming out eventually once I get some good footage in the Montana, Iowa, and Missouri. And at first I was like, okay, maybe it's just matchmaking. Maybe I'm just getting some really crappy teams. And I had a few matches that they weren't all walkovers, and I still wasn't doing that fantastic. Again, I was doing decent, but not fantastic. Not like I was doing in a lot of the newer battleships, like the Kremlin, the Conqueror, the British battleships, the French battleships, because it has been quite some time since I actually sat down and like played the Americans consistently. I played American battleships for like 5 hours on Tuesday, and I got 7 minutes of usable footage from the Iowa, Missouri, and the Montana. That's not a lot. When I had, between the Ohio, Georgia, and Massachusetts, I had more than enough footage to make a 10-12 minute video. But I didn't want it to just be all the premium ships. I wanted to throw some of the older ships in there as well. And that was really frustrating. So the biggest issue that I saw with them was that they're squishy, and they get punished really hard when they slip up because they're so squishy. And the easiest way to remedy this is to just give them the cooldown, the heal cooldown that the Massachusetts, Ohio, and Georgia get. And I get that they're premium ships and that's their trait, and they're supposed to be brawlers, so they give them that faster cooldown because it's supposed to encourage them to brawl. But honestly, I mean, you're not brawling that much anymore nowadays, and that heal really makes a difference with that cooldown. Now, of course, some people want to say, well, you give that to the Ohio and the Missouri and the Montana, then, that's going to make them too powerful. I don't think it will. I really don't, because in order to do well in American battleships against other battleships, you have to get within mid-range. You have to. It's just the way the American shell ballistics are. The shells are so slow, you cannot really get decent pins on battleships at range, except for like the Kerr first, because, well, it's the Kerr first, and it's so chunky at range, and anything can pin it decently. And I just think that's really all it would take, to encourage American battleships, get within that medium range of their sweet spot of their guns. And if you think about it too, the only thing the American battleships really have going for it anymore is that their AP is so slow. They won't overpin cruisers at mid-range. Well, they will, but they overpin them less than the other battleships. That's all they really have going for them nowadays. And it's not like they're the only battleships that are good against cruisers, that have good AP against cruisers. The British do as well, except they have short fuse AP, and it's not that their shells are so slow. So there's that. And the American battleships, they used to have a lot going for them back in the day. Those of us that have been here for some time know this. Their A used to be the best in the game. The Iowa used to be the fastest battleship in the game. They were very stealthy too. But since then, other battleships have come out, and they can pretty much do everything the Americans can do, but better. Like the British, for example. Like I just said, their guns are very good against cruisers because they have the short fuse AP. The AA, it's on par with the American AA. Well, before the CV rework, it was. I ran both the Conqueror and the Montana through what I call the AA gauntlet. That video is still up here somewhere on the channel. And that's where I put the Conqueror and Montana in a training room with 12 CVs. And they had to fight those 12 CVs by themselves. And the Conqueror and Montana, they go back and forth. Conqueror would shoot down 2 more planes than Montana. Montana would shoot down 2 more planes than the Conqueror. It was like that close. I ran that for, I think I ran that like 5 or 6 times each. And so yeah, the Conqueror's pretty much on par with the Montana. And the Kremlin comes out and has just god tier AA before you even touch it with any BFT, AFT, or any AA modules. So then they nerf it by nerfing the health of the AA rather than, toning it down a bit. And they used to be they are still pretty stealthy, but again, the British do that just as well now, and the higher tier Soviets do that just as well now too. And like I said, the only thing they have going for them now is that they will pin cruisers less, which, sure, that's a pretty good thing to have going for you. Montana's is one of the few battleships that can dunk on Smolensk from somewhat close range, and that's another infuriating thing too. Let me tell you guys a story real quick. I had a clip of me in Montana just shredding a Smolensk. I didn't outright delete it, but its health, it went from full health to like 1500 health in one salvo. I landed, I think it was like, I can't remember how many shells hit, but I think it was like just around 3 or 4 full-on pins on the Smolensk, and I think 2 of those pins were citadels. So yeah, just shredded his health down to like 1500. I'm like, oh yeah, that's going in the montage. But then I lost power. And I lost that recording, and phew, I was pissed after that. I was about to do a shroud to my monitor. Not a shroud. I was about to do a summit to my monitor, but I did not. And I persevered. It gave up about 3 hours later. But yeah, that's really about the only thing the American battleships have going for it now. And if they give the North Carolina, Iowa, and Montana that cooldown on the hill, I think that'll fix the problem of them just being too squishy. And still, if they do that, they're still far below what they used to be, 2 years ago when I started playing. I think that'll just make them more comfortable to play in Wargaming's own terminology. The other thing that Wargaming could do is they could finally just split the frickin' American battleship line. They've released more than enough premiums to do it. And if you don't want to develop new ships for Wargaming, just frickin' copy and paste the premiums. You're very good at that. I don't know why they wouldn't do it. They could copy and paste the premiums, tweak their stacks a little bit to make them different from the premiums in one or two ways, and boom, you got yourself an American battleship tree split. Or you could actually, change the ships and make new ships. Just tweak their stats. Push out the secondary range. Just give them the Massachusetts treatment. Make a North Carolina that has good secondaries. Make a Iowa. How did I forget the name of the class? Make an Iowa with good secondaries. Call it the New Jersey. Make a Montana with good secondaries. Call it the Louisiana. And just decrease the Sigma like you did with the Massachusetts. And boom. New American battleship line. And give them all that quick cooldown with their heal. And I promise you, people would freaking eat that up if you did that Wargaming. And again, it's copying, pasting, and tweaking stats, and that's all you gotta do. And I think that would breathe new life into the American battleship line if you don't want to, outright buff the current existing American battleships. And that's my two solutions to give the Americans some love. I think the first one would definitely be the easiest one for them to do, but also the most unlikely. I do think a line split is more likely than them giving the tier 8, 9, and 10 American battleships that quick cooldown heal. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. You think the Americans need some love? You think they're fine as is? I want to hear your opinions. Thank you guys for watching. It's what is it? It's Thursday now. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.